Documentaries. How honest is the portrayed truth? Found over 100 years ago, along with the invention of moving image by the Lumiere brothers in the 1890s, what is seen to be the first feature-length documentary was Nanook of the North, filmed in 1922 by Robert Flaherty, including a third-person narration, which is widely used in today's documentaries. It captures the struggle of Nanook and his family in the Canadian Arctic as they travel in search for food and trade in Quebec. The word documentary was created by John Grierson in 1926. Following this, the 1950s and 60s tried to define codes, conventions, and the language of documentary, amongst other genres. Due to this development and the new technologies, there was a growing demand for broader film subjects, thus resulting in the 1967 Don't Look Back documentary, focusing on Bob Dylan. Since then, documentaries started to be greatly common, and the use of cinematic language techniques were used widely in order to make them seem more realistic and honest to the viewers. According to the Bill Nichols theory, there are 6 modes of the documentary genre, with the first being the poetic mode. It is subjective, it's an artistic expression, and it's presented in a lyrical manner. First appearing in the 1920s with the famous example of a light play, Black, White, Grey, by Laszlo Moholy-Nagy. The second mode is the expository mode. It emphasizes verbal commentary and argumentative logic, often using a narrator, which assumes a logical argument and a right answer. Although the commentary may come from an unspecified place, it remains of a high order and is associated with objectivity, which can be seen in The Shock of the New by Robert Hughes from 1980. The third mode is the observational mode. Viewed as a window to the world, usually has no voiceover, no supplementary music, and no interviews. These documentaries simply watch the given situation without any interruption. The fourth mode is the participatory mode, in which the events and situations presented are altered by the presence of the filmmaker, just like Super Size Me. The next mode is the performative mode, in which the objectivity is rejected and emotions are favored, highlighting the filmmaker's own subjective aspect in order to heighten the response of the audience. Examples of this are greatly depicted in Michael Moore's Tongues Untied, where the camera follows the matters of sexual and racial struggles in the United States nation's brutalizing silence. The final mode is the reflexive mode, in which we are made aware of the process. It calls attention to the assumptions and conventions that manage the documentary filmmaking, increasing our awareness of how films construct representations of reality. Mockumentaries started as early as the 1930s, although the breakthrough came in the second half of the century in 1967, where Jim McBride created David Holzman's Diary. However, it didn't go mainstream until the creation of This Is Spinal Tap in 1984. Being one of the most spoken about and watched mockumentaries of all time, it lacked popularity at first because viewers generally believed that Spinal Tap were a real British heavy metal band, and some still believe it today. The features which made this film a success are the hyper-realistic interviews, handheld camera shot techniques, and concert clips in which there are hundreds of fans. Following this, another famous mockumentary that made an impact on the subgenre is Man Bites Dog. Although it has a different tone and a thriller mood, it showed how quickly mockumentaries can change direction. The film follows Ben, a serial killer on his sadistic adventures within the profession of murder, as well as the crew when they become involved with his crimes. Ben is portrayed as a witty, charismatic guy from the neighborhood. In many scenes, Ben and the crew are in restaurants, cafes, and out in the public, emphasizing the realism of the mockumentary, showing that anybody could be a killer. A friend, a neighbor, or family member. Taking the form of fake raw footage in 1999, the Blair Witch Project made an important impact for the future of stage found footage. Because of the awareness of the camera's presence, it is one of the most important factors in creating the illusion of reality in mockumentaries. The directors Daniel Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez would taunt the actors at night by placing objects outside their tents and making noises. Because of this, the fear of the actors was real. Attempts at objectivity and formal presenting are lost in favor of raw and seemingly uncut footage where the main character, Heather, provokes her subjects by continually filming them. Manipulating the press was also a large factor in the credibleness of the film, as the actors were kept away before its release in order to make people believe they actually died in its making. Evolving from the thrilling suspense horror mood from the previous examples, along came Borat in 2006. Written, produced, and starring as the title character, Sacha Baron Cohen created a hilarious character which will stay with us for a long time, portraying a journalist from Kazakhstan traveling through the United States, recording real-life interactions with Americans, questioning their morals, and making uncomfortable situations with awkward outcomes. What makes the film an absolute mockumentary must-see is the fact that the reactions and most situations are genuine, as the interviewees were not aware who Borat really was. Due to Sacha's persuasiveness and not breaking the character, the police were called an incredible 91 times whilst filming. Finishing our journey through mockumentaries with Casey Affleck's I'm Still Here, starring Joaquin Phoenix. It depicts the emotion of Joaquin's life as he quits his acting career to become a hip-hop artist. Released in 2010 as a competitor at the 67th Venice Film Festival, it was believed to be a documentary rather than a mockumentary. It wasn't until a week later it was announced by the director that it was staged. Once again, the footage looked like it was handheld, and the sequences resembled backstage footage from a concert. Raw, real, sometimes violent and vulgar, with no Hollywood sugarcoating. Looking back at noted mockumentary tactics, they took example from the Blair Witch Project, and Affleck, Phoenix plus anyone involved pretended everything was real, making interviews outside the film stating that it was all happening and that Phoenix was just being observed. Manipulating the press, social media and many more, people believed Joaquin went off the rails.
That one day gets hot.